The body usually kind of comes later, but it is good not to forget about them, to design sort of maybe as a whole shape. And even her hat is part of that shape. Maybe this one's like a little more disheveled and crazy. So this is someone who's like on the run. There, that's not too bad. Yeah, so it takes a little while to warm up. I'd say my first few drawings are usually pretty terrible, and then and then it starts to get a little bit better. Like that last one, so maybe I want to make her a little bit more crazy, which kind of goes into her body and her pose, and what kind of shapes would I use in her body, and what kind of expressions and what kind of action is she going to be doing. So let's say she's holding a gun. So I think I'm going to need a little bit of reference for that. So that gives us a little reference, kind of what we're shooting for. But let's push this as much as we can. So this image actually is already really pushed. I mean, look at those pants. They're super, super high-waisted. Now this is maybe a little more fashionable than I want to make her, but it's a good first step. I think I'm going to pull the arm out here. Not really paying attention to the gun or if that's correct. Just trying to lay in a basic shape. So I gave her this kind of like really little nose. So I kind of was going for something in between, sexy, cute, plus a little crazy. But we probably could have pushed it even further. Um, and caricature, what can we do to really exaggerate this? One of my favorite tools in Photoshop actually is the warp tool. Really fun for just like messing around with proportion. So we can like make her super tall. You gotta be careful of not overdoing it too bad, but That's really fun. So she's now like really, really tall and skinny. Let's save that. All right. Cool. So I just kind of wanted to do a basic, overview of the first 4 weeks. When you're thinking about a character, well, this is actually a pretty good example. I'll throw some red lines on top of here. You're definitely thinking about perspective. Even if you don't actually see the perspective lines, um, it's something that you have to take into consideration. So basically, you can think of your character as a big old cube. And she is stuck inside the cube. If you think of it that way, it should help you kind of break down a little bit of what's going on inside there. And I know it's much more complex than that, but her head is again another cube. You could break it down and say, okay, well, her head lives in there, and then if you think of her hips as a cube, they're kind of tilted at another perspective. Same as how her head is tilted at a slightly different perspective. But if you think of the overall character, let me get rid of that stuff I just drew. That's confusing. Okay, so if you think of her as inside a box, you can then see how perspective is affecting everything about this character. And it especially comes into play with the face and the turning of the form on the head. And we talked about that a little bit when we were talking about construction. But if we were to, there's still perspective on a sphere, it's the same kind of thing. This is our head. You got to think about, you can kind of put that sphere inside of, same thing, put the sphere inside of a little box. And think about how, as it goes towards the vanishing point, things are going to get smaller and closer together. So this side of the face, the left side of the face over here, is a little bit more farther away in perspective. So you can throw on that's why one eye is smaller than the other eye. That's why one corner of the mouth is a little bit lower than the other corner of the mouth. This was a little bit higher. So this is a super simple example, but it's definitely important to remember when you're drawing a head that it is affected by perspective. And if you were to do sort of a simple character, and don't forget your horizon line is in there. Let me draw in a different color in here. And then I can kind of this guy's not very happy to be stuck inside a box. Important thing in when doing like a character just kind of standing is to think about the placement of his feet. And a lot of times you'll see a character just sort of flat like that, just standing on the ground, or maybe you'll see something that doesn't make really very much sense, where you'll have like, you know, one foot here. And I'm trying to think of an example of this where you have, you know, they feel like they're on the same plane, but one is bigger than the other, but they still kind of feel like they're. So watching out for stuff like that. But if you're able to sort of think about them in perspective, and even if you push this, it can sometimes help. Like, say he's really sticking out his foot, and this one is like really far behind. That can give your drawing like a really nice sense of depth. It's something that Alex Wu does a lot with his gesture drawings. He really pushes those feet. I mean, sometimes it's like as exaggerated as like one back there and one like really far forward, you know, and you've got a person doing something crazy over here. But it just kind of shows, you know, where's the force, where's the body leaning. But yeah, thinking about them sort of on, you can always draw in a grid, and you can say, okay, well, there's one foot here, 1 foot there, and try to place them in space correctly on the grid. And just getting up and kind of acting out and standing up and seeing how it feels. Where do the feet go? You know, that helps. So.